It was the year 1917. A world at war. Families torn apart by grief. Government staggering in the sky, silent. But there, in a small village called Fátima in Portugal, something extraordinary began to happen. 3 poor, illiterate children with no influence in society claimed they were seeing a lady brighter than the sun. What began as a simple apparition would quickly become one of the greatest mysteries of modern spirituality. But what many do not know is that behind the messages of peace and conversion, there was a dark secret, a terrifying vision that would make any heart tremble. Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, simple names, pure souls. They claimed that the Virgin Mary visited them month after month, always in the same place, the Cova de Iria. The crowd grew with each meeting. At first, they were just curious neighbors. Then hundreds. By October that same year, there were over 70,000 people, all waiting for the so-called miracle of the sun, which indeed occurred. The sun danced in the sky, according to reports. But this story, which fills the heart with faith, hides a detail that many prefer to ignore, the content of the so-called First Secret of Fátima, revealed in July 1917. According to Sister Lucia's account, on that day, Our Lady showed the 3 little shepherds a vision of hell. She describes how the earth seemed to open at their feet, and there in that deep abyss, human souls were consumed by eternal flames, amidst cries of pain and despair that did not seem human. They were the cries of lost souls. Lucia says she saw horrible figures, with unknown shapes, resembling deformed animals, demons dancing in the fire, mocking those who screamed. Jacinta, still a child, was deeply shaken. She began to cry alone, repeating that many souls would go to hell, and that much prayer was needed for sinners. Our Lady said to the children with a look of deep sadness, "You have seen hell, where the souls of poor sinners go. To save them, God wants to establish in the world devotion to my Immaculate Heart." From that moment on, the message of Fátima was no longer just an exhortation to prayer. It became an urgent call to conversion, to penance, to a change of life. But why would Our Lady show something so terrifying to 3 children? Why allow them to see what so many adults do not even believe exists? Perhaps because, in their purity, there was still space to listen without doubting, to feel without rationalizing. And perhaps because we, hardened adults, need these innocent souls to remind us of the gravity of what we ignore. Hell is not a metaphor. It is not a symbol. For the visionaries of Fátima, it was a reality as vivid as the earth they walked on. The apparitions continued, and the secrets unfolded over time. The second secret spoke about World War II and the need for the consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. But the first secret, that one remained in the memory and heart of the little shepherds as an eternal mark. Jacinta, even so young, often said, if people knew what eternity is, they would do everything to change their lives. She herself offered herself in sacrifice, enduring sickness and suffering with a smile on her face, all to atone for the sins of the world. And she died saintly shortly after. Meanwhile, the world carried on. Adults disbelieved. Governments tried to silence the story. And the Vatican took years to reveal the third secret, which would only be officially known in 2000. But the vision of hell was recorded clearly, an uncomfortable reminder that evil is real and that the choice between heaven and hell begins here, now, in every act, every word, every omission. The second secret, Fátima, was revealed by Sister Lucia years later and involved 2 main themes: the prediction of World War II and the divine request of consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Our Lady allegedly said, "The war is about to end, but if people do not stop offending God, a worse war will begin during the papacy of Pius XI." And so it was. The First World War ended in 1918. But in just over 2 decades, the world plunged once again into an abyss of destruction with World War II, exactly as it had been prophesied. But what is most striking about this second secret is the emphasis on Russia. Our Lady warned that if the consecration request was not fulfilled, Russia will spread its errors throughout the world, promoting wars, persecutions against the church, and the suffering of the righteous. For scholars and believers, these errors would be atheism, communism, the denial of God, and the rejection of faith as the foundation of society. The message was clear. The world needed to turn its heart back to God, Otherwise, it would suffer the spiritual and physical consequences of its rebellion. The consecration of Russia became the subject of debate for decades. Many believe the request was not fulfilled exactly as Our Lady had asked. Others argue that Pope John Paul II, in 1984, finally performed the universal consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, which may have prevented a greater catastrophe. But the fact remains that, even today, the world seems to live in a constant state of unrest, wars, religious persecutions, moral and spiritual decay. And then we come to the third secret of Fátima, the most mysterious and controversial of all. For many years, the secret remained hidden. It was kept in sealed envelopes, accessed only by the popes and a few cardinals. This sparked curiosity, theories, and suspicions. What could be so serious that it had to be kept silent for so long? In 2000, the Vatican officially released the content of the third secret. According to the account, Lucia saw a bishop dressed in white who climbed a steep mountain, praying for all the faithful. At the top of this mountain, he came before a large cross, and there he was killed by a group of soldiers, along with other religious, faithful, and lay people. The vision also spoke of an angel with a sword of fire, calling for penance, while drawing attention to the sins of humanity. The Vatican interpreted this vision as a reference to the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II in 1981, and as a symbol of the Church's suffering throughout the 20th century. But many scholars, theologians, and even clergy were unconvinced. They say this was only part of the revelation, or a softened interpretation of the true message. Some believe the third secret spoke of an internal crisis within the Church, of apostasy, of a great loss of faith that would affect even the highest levels of the clergy. Others speak of a divided church, doctrinal confusion, and even a possible spiritual rupture between the true faithful and an increasingly worldly leadership. Pope Benedict XVI himself, in one of his statements, said that the greatest dangers to the Church do not come from outside, but from within. A simple phrase, but one that resonated as a silent warning to those who are watching signs. And then comes the inevitable question: are we now living in the time of these prophecies? The internal divisions, the scandals, the growing spiritual coldness, the disregard for traditions and sacraments, everything seems to point to a time of purification, a time when evil becomes increasingly subtle, more acceptable, more disguised, even within the walls of the Church. Permanece survives 8 OFIM. O chat GPTDs. In light of all this, many ask themselves, what can we do? If the world is indeed on the brink of difficult times, if the prophecies are unfolded before our eyes, how should we live? The answer is in the message of Our Lady herself: prayer, penance, and consecration. She never came to spread fear. Her words, though strong, always carried the seal of love. When she showed hell, it was to awaken us. When she spoke of war, it was to call us to conversion. When she warned about the errors of Russia, it was to remind us of the power of faith. None of what was revealed at Fátima is meant for despair. Rather, it is for awakening. Today, more than ever, we are called to pray the Rosary daily, as Our Lady requested, to consecrate our families, our lives, to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, to return to confession, to the Eucharist, to a life of holiness, and not just as external acts, but with the heart. The time for half measures is over. It is time to make a decision. In her final apparitions, Sister Lucia even said, the final battle between the kingdom of Christ and the kingdom of Satan will be about marriage and the family. And looking around, it is impossible not to notice the attacks on the foundation of society, on life, on human identity, on the innocence of children. It's as if the world is being slowly led into a state of spiritual darkness, where what is right is mocked and sin is celebrated. But even in this darkness, a light shines. Because the darker the night, the stronger the smallest flame shines. Those who remain faithful, even in the little things, are like torches lit in the middle of the storm. And it is to them that Our Lady speaks. To you, to me, to all who still believe that truth does not change with time, and that faith is stronger than any fear. The Apocalypse, so often quoted by many in these times, is not just a book of tragedies. It is, above all, the revelation of Christ's final victory. The Lamb will triumph. But until then, we are invited to stand firm, faithful, and persevering. The cross is present, but so is the promise of resurrection. And, as Our Lady said at Fátima, with firmness and tenderness, finally, my Immaculate Heart will triumph. This promise is our hope. And while it has not yet been fulfilled in its fullness, our role is clear: to pray, to watch, to love, and to remain faithful until the end.